So what it's going to make in the final domestic total isn't going to be pretty. What's up, Ragin Nation? My name is Alex Yu, and let's talk about last night. This is just a web series we're talking about Transformers Last Night. This is episode number 2, and in this episode, we're going to talk about box office. Because in one of the final episodes of The Road to TF5, I did my predictions for the Rotten Tomatoes score and also the box office for Transformers Last Night. And I just figured now that we have crossed over the first weekend of Transformers Last Night, we should talk about this before my predictions become irrelevant. So let's just first start off with what I predicted. 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, 80 million domestic opening, 190 million domestic final, and 1.02 billion worldwide. Now, we can't talk about any of the final numbers for the domestic and the worldwide box office, but we can finally find out if my predictions are right for the Rotten Tomatoes score and the domestic opening. So let's just start off with the Rotten Tomatoes score, and we ended up with 15%. That is with 156 reviews. Now, after I watched the advanced screening for Transformers Last Night, I made this tweet. I think Transformers Last Night will end up with an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. My 29% prediction was way off, but that does not reflect my opinion. So basically, before I watched the movie, I said 29%. And then after I watched it at the advanced screening, I said 11%. That was quite a significant drop. So that just tells you what the quality of the film was like. But anyways, we ended up with 15%, quite close. The original prediction was double that. But I want to share with you something. And, well, let's just look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores for the previous films. 57 for the first one, 19 for the second one, 35 for the third one, and 18% for the Age of Extinction, the fourth one. But what's really interesting is that if you look back at how many reviews were counted, there's a significant drop. 221 with the first one. 244 it increased with the second one. It also increased with Dark of the Moon, but then if you go to Age of Extinction, it starts decreasing to 188. That's from 247. That's, I think, 60 reviewers less. And then now when you go over to Transformers Last Night, it drops down to 156. That's 32 less reviewers. And that tells you something. That tells you that originally more reviewers were reviewing the films in the franchise as we progressed towards the middle. But once we got to Dark of the Moon, I think that's when franchise fatigue started to happen, because there were fewer reviewers, like less reviewers, or rather less critics. Fewer critics wanted to review this film. There was a significant drop in critics that wanted to review this film. They just didn't even want to watch it. So we went from 247 to 188 reviews, and then all the way to 156. When compared to the most amount of critics reviewing it from Transformers Dark of the Moon, all the way to Transformers Last Night, that is 90 fewer critics reviewing it. So in a way, this number is kind of skewed, but if this is the final number, then this is what we ended up with. But at the end of it all, this just means that fewer critics actually want to spend their time watching this film because they feel they're going to end up with the same thing. So there you have it. That's what's going on with the Rotten Tomatoes scores. So I was off by double. So let's talk about the box office. Now, like I said, we can only talk about the opening domestic box office. So let's just go with what I predicted. And I said 80 million for domestic opening. Well, what we ended up with was 69 million, which is 11 million off. But actually, once they pulled in the final numbers, it wasn't actually 69 million. It was actually 68.4. So I was off by at least 10 million. But anyways, what was very, very interesting is that Transformers Last Night did open on a Wednesday. So the 69 million was made over the course of 5 days. So actually, for the 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it actually only made 45.3 million. That is very little considering that I believe that I think Revenge of the Fallen actually made like 40 million or at least 40 million in a single day. That is one single day. Revenge of the Fallen was able to make that much money in what Transformers Last Night did in 3 days. That's pretty insane. Now I put together this little spreadsheet with some data, box office data, that to some people may find interesting, to other people it's just a bunch of jargon. But I love talking about box office numbers because it gives you an indication of people's viewing patterns, like in all parts of the world, not just America, but not just North America, but it really tells you about how people feel about these films, and if people are really wanting to watch these films, or are they falling off the wagon. So I have all the films listed here, and in 3 days, in the 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there is quite an increase from 70 million, but it stayed consistent at the first 3 sequels, Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction. They stayed consistent at around 100 million. But then for Transformers Last Night, it dropped to less than half, which is insane. Now, as you guys already know, with summer movies, or some of the summer movies, they opened on different days. So Transformers opened on a Tuesday, Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, and Last Night opened on a Wednesday, but Age of Extinction was the only film that actually opened on a Friday. So if I'm going to show you the weekly final numbers, then it's a little bit skewed, because from Tuesday to Friday, Transformers made over 150 million. All right. From Wednesday to Friday, Revenge of the Fallen, that's 5 days. Yeah, over the course of 5 days, 200 million for Revenge of the Fallen. That is huge. For Dark of the Moon, for 5 days, 162. Now, Age of Extinction stayed the same at 100 million because it opened on a 3-day weekend. But Transformers Last Night, despite having a 5-day opening for the week, it only made 68.4 million, which is an all-time low. That is extremely low, lower than the first Transformers film, which is really, really unfortunate. Now, of course, there's also the foreign box office. Now, the foreign box office total is always skewed, mainly because it opens on different dates. Like, some of the countries will even get Transformers Last Night in August. So I'm just going to share with you the numbers here, and then it just puts things in perspective. 36 million for Transformers, 20 million for Revenge of the Fallen. Now here's where it gets interesting, or rather consistent, because for Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, Last Night, the foreign opening was actually around the same time for every country, except for a few. So 220 Dark of the Moon, 200 for Age of Extinction, and 196 for the Last Night. So very, very close together. All right. Now the totals are all over the place. Now I'm talking about like when it first opened on whether it be a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Friday, all the way to the Sunday, but worldwide. So the worldwide opening for the first weekend, minus the countries that opened like weeks later, here's the numbers. 191, 220, 381 for Dark of the Moon, 302 for Age of Extinction, 265 million for Transformers Last Night. Now, I got to talk about China, because China makes up a huge market for the international box office. So we got to always talk about that and incorporate that in how much it really makes up. China has an all-time high for a Transformers film in the franchise. Out of the 5 films, it has increased and increased and increased all the way to 123.4 million, the biggest opening for China for a Transformers film. All right. It was only in Dark of the Moon where they started capturing the Chinese market with 56 million, and then increased dramatically to 92 million with Age of Extinction, with all that Chinese pandering, and they still continue the Chinese pandering with Transformers Last Night. And not only that, it was co-produced and co-financed by 3 major Chinese studios and distributors. So with that being said, they pushed the hell out of this film, and that's why Transformers Last Night ended up opening with the biggest opening in China for a film in the Transformers franchise. Now the finals are pretty all over the place. 710, 836, 1.1, and 1.1, and we don't have anything for Transformers Last Night yet. We'll probably get that number in 2 to 3 months from now. But anyways, the budgets have been pretty consistent. 150 million was the lowest budget for the first film, but between Revenge of the Fallen and Transformers Last Night, it's always stuck around the $200 million area, with Transformers Last Night being the most expensive film in the Transformers franchise, but it's going to end up making the least amount for a sequel. I think it's still going to surpass the first film, but not by that much more. So that's what's going on with that. Now, to put things in perspective, considering that Age of Extinction opened on a Friday, so they only get a 3-day weekend number, let's just see what happens in a 5-day release for Age of Extinction. Boom! In 5 days of release, Age of Extinction made 121 million. In 5 days of release, Transformers Last Night has made 68.5 million. So that's nearly half. That really tells you something. From the 4th film to the 5th film, there is a huge, significant drop. And speaking of drop, I predict that Transformers Last Night will have like a 72 or 73% box office weekend drop from the first weekend to the second weekend. So what it's going to make in the final domestic total isn't going to be pretty. I'm guaranteeing you that right now. So, what happens next? Well, I think Paramount should get ready for making up for with the home video release. And what are they gonna do? Well, they already started marketing the home video release for Transformers Last Night, and this is through a concept. All right. Now this isn't 100% final. This is not final artwork. This is an HMV exclusive. And it's going to be a steelbook. It's Transformers Last Night 3D Steelbook Edition, exclusive from HMV. Best Buy also offers their steelbook editions, so I'm still waiting for that. That's probably going to be announced pretty soon. But the fact is that they already announced this, or rather the concept is out like in the first weekend of the release of Transformers Last Night. That is insane. Now, this has been circling around making rounds around the Transformers community. This was shared by TF Daily. And basically, this is a mock-up artwork for the Blu-ray release, and it shows that it's the Ultimate Edition, which is an extended cut with 40 minutes of never-before-seen footage. More story, more action. Now, I'm just curious, where did they get this number? Because this is just concept, and I don't even know if this is completely legit. I think this could be fan concept. I don't know if it's completely like made up. But I'm just wondering, where did they get the 40-minute number? Where did that come from? Perhaps they read it in an interview where Michael Bay said that 40 minutes of the film was actually cut out. And, well, why would they cut out 40 minutes of the film when the film feels incomplete? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because it has a lot to do with box office. When you have a film that is 3 hours or over 3 hours, you reduce the number of showings in a theater. The theater it's only open from this time to this time. It can only fit in so many viewings, or rather show times. So if you like make your film over 3 hours or 3 hours, then the amount of show times is going to be reduced dramatically. So what they got to do is bring it down to 2.5 hours so that they can fit in one more showing. And by doing that, you make more money. So that is why they definitely had to cut a lot out. They couldn't repeat what they did with Transformers Age of Extinction and make a 2 hour and 45-minute showtime, because they want to make sure they get the best bang for their buck. But of course it doesn't, I don't know how audiences would feel about that. Transformers fans, like hardcore Transformers fans, would love the extra screen time or extra running time. But casual moviegoers might feel like this movie is way too freaking long. It's way too long. Let me give you an indication of how some people felt, okay? I watched it again for the 4th time yesterday, and before the credits even rolled, right when the final battle was over, right when you can confirm that the final battle is over, this guy just walked up and left. Maybe he really had to go to the bathroom, or maybe he was just done with everything. He couldn't handle anymore. Another thing is that the woman sitting next to me, when the final battle started, 30 seconds into the final battle, she leaned over her seat and she went like this. And she just closed her eyes. I could tell if her eyes were closed, but she was looking down and she was like this. It's because she couldn't take anymore. It was just too much for her. And when you think about it from the perspective of a casual moviegoer, it's just overload. It's sensory overload. It's too much. It's overkill. But you know what? I love all the action. The action, of course, could have been better, but more is better to me and a lot of other fans, right? So anyways, the next question is this really, really legit? Well, the TF Life tweeted at me or shared with me the screenshot. Is there going to be a DVD release with an extended cut? Transformers movie. This is the official account. Says, we have something planned. You won't be disappointed. So that's already indication that they got something for us. And this is going the same route as Suicide Squad. Batman vs. Superman. These extended cuts, these director's cuts, these extended editions. It really gives the I guess the consumer what do you call that, incentive. That's the word I'm looking for. It gives them the incentive to want to buy it on home video, because now you know that you watched an incomplete movie. The complete version of the film is actually on home video release, which you have to purchase exclusively. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's happening. I just don't know how much longer it's going to be. Is it going to be the full 40 minutes that Michael Bay suggested was cut out, or is it actually going to be less? I can't imagine what they would put in 40 minutes. Seriously, 40 minutes? That's insane. Like, it's going to be like maybe 85% human stuff and 15% CGI, like robot action. Like, I really don't believe that they're going to put in like 40 minutes of full-on robot action. I think that a majority of it is actually going to be more exposition, extended sequences of human dialogue, but not that much more action. But this is something that Paramount Pictures and Michael Bay is no stranger to, because if you remember back in 2007, they actually re-released Transformers on IMAX, like at least a month later from its release. And the main reason why is because not only did they want to re-release it in IMAX, but to get people into the theaters, they actually said that there was going to be like 1 to 2 minutes of extra scenes. And what were those extra scenes? All human footage. That's all it was. All human footage. So that already gives me an indication that the extra 40 minutes, if it is even 40 minutes, is going to be human stuff. Anyways, let's move on. Like, what's next? What else is there going on after the home video release? Well, according to this interview that was posted on Heroic Hollywood, this headline reads, Transformers, Mark Wahlberg thinks Michael Bay isn't finished. All right, let's see what he had to say. It's one of those things where Michael has built this entire universe, right? And he will decide what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. Right now, he says he doesn't want to do another film. And he says that after every film, because they're so difficult to make, and he pretty much has to do it single-handedly. Even with all the help that he has, because all of the movie is in his mind. So he'll decide that I would be hard-pressed to see him walk away and put it in somebody else's control and care. I mean, that's just the Michael that I know. But you never know. Sometimes people decide to move on. So we'll see what happens. So that really doesn't tell us anything, because it could happen, it might not happen. But Mark Wahlberg has worked with Michael Bay in 3 films already: Pain and Gain, Transformers Age of Extinction, and The Last Knight. And he knows, based on all the interactions he's had, the relationship he has with Michael Bay, that this doesn't sound like the Michael Bay I know. Could he really be moving on? I don't really know. I mean, because it's his baby. Essentially, whether you like it or not, Transformers live action movie franchise is his baby. And then he's got this huge attachment to it. But for me and a lot of other fans, even though we like the film, we actually do want to see another vision. I don't know a lot of people who actually like the film that have actually said that I want Michael Bay to stay. Because this is already 5 films in. And you know that there could have been a lot of improvements to this film. You know it. Even if you love this film, you know that things could have been improved. So I think Michael Bay has had his chance. 5 films in, it's time to move on. Let's see what, this. Now, going back to an interview that he said about whether it's his last or not, this is what Michael Bay said. These movies that I've done, they are massive movies. They take a lot out of you. I've done it enough, and I've had a great time doing it. I'm going out with a bang on this one, and I feel like you got to go out while you're ahead. You know, I think I've had a good run, and I've got a lot of others movies I want to do. I think he's pretty much sealed the deal right there. With what he said, with that quote, I believe that he's not coming back, because there are a lot of other movies he wants to do. This is 10 years. Like, this is a 10-year chapter of his filmmaking career. Essentially, it's half of his career. He's been making movies since 1994 with Bad Boys, and it's 2017 now. So this is half of his career making these giant robots fight. So that's huge. Maybe he might come back a couple of years later to follow up with Unicron, but I'm just so glad that he's at least taking this massive, or a long break. He's going to take a long break if he is going to come back. It's going to be a couple years in, but let's just move on. Let's just give it to somebody else, and at the most just serve as an executive producer. Not even a producer, just an executive producer. Anyways, what does Lorenzo de Bonaventura have to say? We're really waiting to see how the audience responds to this movie and what elements they really love, because one of the things we found was, as filmmakers, that there was a great freedom suddenly to break sort of the simplistic Decepticons versus Autobots, and now Arthurian legend, now knights, and now humans have a role. And that was really exciting for us, so I think we want to keep pushing out. I don't think you can anticipate necessarily what we'll do, necessarily that we'll do a movie in sequence. So based on what he said, they're looking to really explore the past of the Transformers, and that's what I'm really interested in. I was interested in what Bumblebee did in the World War II sequence. I wanted to see more of that. I wish that it was extended for a longer sequence. I was interested in the Knights. I was interested in what the creators are doing. You know, I'm interested in the lore. And Transformers Last Night, whether you like it or not, it is a vehicle to actually expand the lore. That was its sole purpose. It was to open the doors for films like Bumblebee and also the animated Cybertron prequel. So if you want to know what's next, that's what's next. And as for the next film that follows the saga with that cliffhanger, with Unicron and Quintessa, that's the next saga, should they decide to make that for 2020 or 2021. But in any case, we got 2018 and 2019 summer with 2 spin-off films. All right, so there you have it. Now I want to share with you this tweet from Juan Flores. He says, "I thought you didn't like the movie as you wanted to. Don't know if I'm seeing it again in theaters." And this is tweeted to me after I said 4th time tonight in IMAX 3D. And that's referring to, of course, my 4th time watching Transformers Last Night, and also my 3rd time watching it in IMAX 3D. Now, I expressed that I was disappointed with the film. It frustrated me. It made me a little bit sad. And I gave the film a 4.5 out of 10. And even though I watched it in IMAX 3D, my score still stands. Now, why would I go back to watch it again? That's like asking me, why would I go back to watch Age of Extinction 14 times, or Dark of the Moon 11 times, or Revenge of the Fallen 3 times? It's the same question, and that is, regardless of how bad these films are, regardless of how poorly reviewed these films are, and regardless of how much more I wanted out of these films, I have a very, very special attachment. Like, these films hold a special place in my heart. My attachment to these films is that, first of all, I love Transformers G1, 1984. I also really enjoy Transformers Prime, and I love transforming robots, and not just transforming robots in real life, in live action. And to top things off with this experience, like, presented in IMAX 3D, it's an experience. It's like going on a roller coaster ride. And like, while all the human stuff is kind of nonsense to me, I still love it when I actually see the robots. I want that experience. And even though the movie isn't good, I will still keep on going back, just because, look, Transformers Last Night in IMAX 3D is only going to be around for another 2 weeks. After that, Spider-Man Homecoming is going to take up my IMAX screen. So I have 2 weeks to experience this and get the most out of it as much as I can. I have only 2 weeks to experience this ride before it is gone forever. So that's why I feel that, okay, I want to take the opportunity to go watch this as much as I can in IMAX 3D, or if you don't have an IMAX 3D screen, watch it in the biggest possible screen in 3D. And that is because you will never ever get this experience ever again. And there are times when I tell people that, like, hey, were you able to watch this movie? Like, I'm not saying Transformers, but like any other film, were you able to watch it in IMAX 3D? And then they'll tell me, oh no, I was only able to catch it on Netflix or on like DVD. And I was like, oh man, you totally missed out. It's a completely different experience. And that's true. Watching it in IMAX 3D was a completely different and a more positive experience compared to when I watched the advanced screening on a screen that is 4 times smaller in real D3D, where the screens weren't even brightly lit compared to an IMAX 3D screen. So that's why I watched it that many more times. And I'm still planning to watch it for a 5th time and maybe even a 6th time. Maybe let's just make it to lucky number 7 times. Or even in Chinese culture, 8 is actually a lucky number. But anyways, so that's why I watched it that many times. Now, the last thing I want to ask you guys is to go over my Twitter account, follow me, and the top tweet that I have on my profile, the pinned tweet, is a poll. And the poll asks, how do you feel about Transformers Last Night? Vote now. You got 5 days to vote, guys. Go over to go to my profile, show me some support by following me, and then vote. I really want to see how many people at the Ragin Nation actually like this film, hate this film, or thought it was okay. Let me know by voting. I'm really curious about the thoughts. I want to see a consensus. I want to see what the general feeling from the Ragin Nation is, and you can do that by voting. You got 5 days. Anyways, I'm gonna end this episode right here. Thank you so much for sending me your questions. And the About Last Night, this brand new web series, will continue with questions from you guys. All you got to do is tweet at me a question and use the hashtag About Last Night. And then I'm gonna put all your questions in this jar, reach in, I'm going to randomly grab some questions, and that's what's going to make up the episode. So it's up to you guys to help me out and contribute. Anyways, that's all I got to say in this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your support. Thank you to everybody who's been purchasing t-shirts and VIP badges. We're going to do the giveaway. I promise we're going to do the giveaway on the next episode, About Last Night. Episode 3, stay tuned for that. We're going to do IMAX 3D poster giveaway to VIP members, and there you have it. Anyways, as always, if you enjoyed this video, you want to see more, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter, Ragin Nation. My name is Alex. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Just your typical, like, bam, 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 typical driving, and just standard background